All right, everyone, it's New back again. Welcome back. Today, I want to bring you a video about what is easily the most anticipated thing I'm looking forward to next League 3.22. It is all about quantity, rarity, Magic Finder. Magic Finders rejoice. This is a big one, and it has nothing to do with the league mechanic itself. Of course, I was anticipating maybe, just maybe, we get another league mechanic that involved or is integrated seamlessly into the maps. Perhaps it would even, increase the amount of drops we get in maps. Something like Sentinel League, of course. I don't know, Scourge League, something like that. But no, it looks like once again we're getting a kind of heist or Sanctum-esque league that, it'll be a lot of fun for a lot of people. Not really my cup of tea, but we got our major consolation prize in the form of a brand new Keystone. Honestly, some of these Keystones are pretty powerful. They all look to be quite interesting. This one especially to me, and especially over the fact that it involves an otherwise dead league for the most part. But conceptually, Torment has huge ramifications for magic finding. If it were any good, it would. And it does look like it might actually become kind of good, this league. Depends on how this plays out. It's definitely going to kind of elevate the level of play. It's going to require players to play the game a little bit differently, a little bit more challenging. I'm up for the challenge. I want to see what it's like. I'm definitely going to trial it out when it happens. But I kind of want to theory craft something, present to you what this is probably going to look like, how it's going to play out, and maybe, you'll think about some things you hadn't thought about in anticipating this. So, here we go. Speaker of the Dead is the new Keystone. Chris Wilson introduced it in the keynote presentation. I am going to play this about 10 seconds a clip so we can kind of see it in action. You're going to pay close attention to what it looks like. There's a lot of intel that we can get just from this. But we can see here, tormented spirits in your maps can possess players for 20 seconds. No, it's not indefinitely. It's just for 20 seconds. Too bad. Would have been nice because it is indefinitely, for the monsters in game. But I suppose they realized that would have been way too overpowered. So that is really strong. And of course, the tormented buff gives monsters a lot of power. You can see it on the wiki. I'm going to show you the PoE wiki. It gives you, cast speed, attack speed, movement speed, damage, and all of that already. And then it also increases the drops. Now, the drops can be a little bit difficult to anticipate because we don't really seem to have any hard math on that, but it is fairly significant. And that matters because it says tormented spirits in your maps cannot possess monsters. They can only possess players. However, through the advanced tooltips, players can touch up to 50. Okay, not an infinite number, just 50. Kind of a small number, actually, when I think about how many monsters I'm running by in a given map, in a juicy map. 50 nearby monsters for each tormented spirit possessing them. For each spirit possessing them. So it's not just like 50 one time. It'll be 50 for each spirit that you get possessed by. So 20 seconds, 50 monsters. That's some key information right there. Let's see what Chris Wilson has to say. You can kind of play it back. And you're going to want to play this back.
Speaker of the Dead makes it so that tormented spirits can possess you rather than possessing monsters. Boosting your stats instead. While possessed, you can touch monsters just like a spirit can, making them stronger and more rewarding.
Okay, so I want to pause right there real quick, and again, you might have to play it back just for the second. You'll notice it's something really important that I would have anticipated. If I hadn't seen any footage of this, I would have anticipated the fact that tormented spirits can no longer possess monsters, can only possess players. What do? Whenever they find a target, they immediately run to that target. They attempt to possess that target. I would have assumed that that meant, in a good way, you open the map. If there's a tormented spirit even like 2 screens away, you would just come barreling in and try to possess you instantly. But if I look at this footage right here, unfortunately, it looks like that's not the case. It looks like the spirits are programmed to just wander aimlessly. They don't have anything possessed, and the player actually has to go out of their way to latch onto them. So I would say, on a side note, if there's any GGG dev watching this right now, I think I speak for everyone in terms of quality of life. Would really like it if you could reprogram the spirits to actually try to possess the player. That would make everybody happier, and I don't think that'd be a problem at all if that were the case. So I did want to point that out. It is an unfortunate downside, I guess, an unexpected downside of the new mechanic.
It's kind of getting silly at this point, isn't it?
All right, so there it is. It kind of shows it there. I'll bring it back so you can kind of read it one more time. There it is. All right, you also would have noticed that the second the player received that possessed buff, he immediately sped up. You could see it. Now, I presume he didn't just use a Quicksilver Flask at that moment. It was obvious that the player sped up a lot, and that is evidenced here. It says, in addition to some slight increase to movement, attack, and cast speeds, as well as significantly increased item quantity and rarity. It's talking about Tormented Spirit. That's straight out of the wiki. It doesn't say how much it is right there, unfortunately, but I did also pull up Fairgrave's Tricorn. So the interesting thing here is that this tech implementation already exists in the form of this unique item. I've even thought about making builds around this and thought about trying to do it. I've seen other content creators kind of make a build around it. It is clearly pretty powerful. You can see in this case there is more description. However, it is explicit to the Fairgrave's Tricorn buff, providing 50% increased damage, 50% attack speed, 50% cast speed, 50% increased movement speed. Now, to me, it looked like when in that footage that just played, it looked like the players did in fact move about 50% faster. I'd say something like that. So it seems to reason that maybe these numbers right here are indeed the sort of innate buff qualities that are given to any monsters that is touched or possessed, or at least possessed, which the player is indeed possessed. Now, one thing you would have noticed, maybe here, it says players can touch up to 50 nearby monsters. This is actually kind of bad news here, because it doesn't say players can touch or possess up to 50 nearby monsters. You can kind of imagine a situation that would be kind of awesome where, I don't know, maybe you like spawn a legion and you just go around and maybe even in stasis form, you could just go around and just possess a bunch of legion rares. How awesome would that be? Well, maybe rares and uniques we can't actually affect in any way, shape, or form, because generally the way this mechanic works, I believe, is that you can only, as far as normal or magic monsters, if they run into a spirit, they are touched. But rare or unique monsters, they are possessed. They're not touched. So that is another interesting point that is a bit unfortunate in all of this. But anyway, you can see here that Fairgrave's Tricorn, it says you can be touched by tormented spirits. So you get these buffs here that I've highlighted, plus you get the buffs from the Spirit's Touch. All these line down. You can see there's pretty significant buffs. However, I missed this first time around. It says tormented spirits in your maps can possess players. So actually, Tricorn, Fairgrave's Tricorn is weaker than this Keystone, at least as far as at the top end, because we would not be getting the Spirit's Touch buffs. We would be getting the Spirit's Grip buffs. It would be actually extremely interesting if you were to, for some reason, I don't know, combine these two and get both at the same time. I don't know if that's possible. But you can see the Spirit's Grip. These are the ones that are categorized as possessed. They're much stronger, and in some cases they may even quasi-brick a build. It's weird things like physical damage conversion to chaos, a whole bunch of physical to element gained extra, which is significant for any physical build. This could be the difference between me deciding to go, pure elemental versus phys gained as extra elemental, which is already good for any kind of headhunter inspired learning play. Even better now if this is included in addition, even more potentially massive borrowed power coming in the form of 60% physical gained is extra. There's one for cold, fire, and lightning in here, as well as random element. I think there's a lot of other things with like charges, power charges, frenzy charges. There's another one here that gives a whole bunch of extra life, 125% increase area of effect, which presumably would increase the range that you can actually possess monsters. Here's an interesting thing I almost forgot to mention. Players can touch up to 50 nearby monsters. There is that word, that very interesting PoE lingo, nearby. What does that mean? Well, anytime nearby is stated in there, first of all, the distance is unknown, but it is, as far as I know, always impacted by increased area of effect. So any sort of player increased area of effect presumably would increase the range at which you can touch monsters, which means wouldn't necessarily have to be extraordinarily dangerous. You wouldn't have to walk straight through, precision walking right through all of the monsters to get them affected by. You could just walk next to, graze them, right there near them. Okay, and I don't know. That's about it. Get some things, weird things with increased energy shield. Yeah, there's once again power charge, increased resistances, a lot of different things. You can read this on your own time if you want. And again, you can either check Fairgrave's Tricorn page or Tormented Spirit itself. I think it's going to have the same list of things there. A lot of them don't really impact you at all, I would say. So the last thing I want to show is the Atlas passive tree, which does have, again, I mentioned that Torment itself did get a little bit of love in the form of the Atlas passive tree, so let's kind of review some of that here. Maps have a increased chance to spawn an additional Tormented Spirit, kind of small, could be doubled with Wandering Path. Presumably, if you're doing this strategy, you're probably going to be using actual Torment Scarabs for once. It says here, Tormented Spirits new maps have a 50% increased duration. This one is kind of curious because the spirits themselves have the increased duration until they despawn. I'm guessing this is not going to have anything to do with the buff duration put on the player. So we have a 20-second buff duration once we get possessed. It would be pretty crazy, though, if this actually does impact it. It would be 30 seconds if it does, or 40 seconds with Wandering Path. By the way, it could be even more if you did a self-temp chains build. So self-temp chains is always kind of on the radar for any kind of major borrowed power builds with Soul Eater or whatever, because then you're increasing the duration of the buffs that you get, and that would presumably apply to this. However, I don't typically go self-temp chain because it's gonna, kind of ruin the magic fine gearing process a bit. But, something, a little side point. But anyway, yeah, this is probably not going to really impact anything in the end unless it, for some reason, does increase the duration. If it did, it'd probably be a bug. But over here, we have Tormented Monster Item Quantity. Now, this is under the same rubric as Enraged Strongbox Sextant, I believe. It would probably be additive with those bonuses, presumably, because it is increased quantity designated straight to the monster. I believe it would also be additive with increased item quantity given through the map modifiers, although I could be wrong about that. I never really was able to confirm that. I did, a big test on this with Strongbox Quantity Delirium farming and trying to test the quantity multipliers against them each other, see what's additive, what's multiplicative. I never really was able to confirm whether like Enraged Strongbox was additive or multiplicative with the map modifiers. I had information that kind of suggested both ways, so it was a bit inconclusive, but more is always better. Or I should probably be careful with my words. Increased is always better. Either way. Speaking of more, we do have a notable over here that actually gives more quantity of items dropped by possessed monsters, which could be absolutely huge for this, if not for the fact Tormented Spirits in your map's cannot possess monsters, right? So you, the player, cannot possess monsters. Players can touch, not possess, which means this notable would be worthless, except for the fact that it could spawn a bunch of Tormented Spirits in the map boss room, which would be pretty funny. You could then run back out of the map. Well, you'd obliterate the boss and then run back out of the map. And then, have the time of your life for like 15 seconds, I guess. But anyway, I'm really sad about this. I'm guessing. Let's just put it this way. If by chance this works in such a way that you getting possessed and then can sort of repossess everything else that you're running by, that would be enormous. It would be so huge. In fact, it would almost completely drop Wandering Path from the equation here. But if Unrelenting Torment does indeed not work, which would be worst case scenario, and I'm leaning against it probably not working, or leaning towards it probably not working, then Wandering Path is likely going to be the play here, with these nodes being the strongest ones. Once again, kind of focusing on Strongbox. I think, Strongbox typically spawns magic and normal monsters anyway, so they're high quality candidates for getting touched. Also, they tend to be some of the more safer monsters that get spawned in a given map. This is obviously going to be kind of challenging because you have to not just kill everything instantly. Even if you're glass cannon, you're going to have to actually get up in the face of the enemies you're trying to kill, whether you're waiting to get possessed by a Tormented Spirit or trying to further possess other things. It's going to be really interesting for builds, by the way. It's going to maybe kind of diversify builds. People are going to have to start leaning more towards a little bit more tanky, maybe a little bit less focused on damage, because again, extra borrowed power is already going to be in play. But yeah, that's kind of all I want to show here. So to wrap things up, when it comes to new mechanics, interesting mechanics, this is exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for. This is something that will integrate seamlessly into mapping. It will change the way I play a little bit, but I still kind of stay true to my roots and playing, for the raw drops that I like to do through the magic finding. It synergizes, certainly well enough with magic finding in general. It is going to raise the skill cap and or the gear cap. It's especially going to be interesting in the sense that I feel more incentivized to actually go the extra mile for more gear because it would present more challenge. It would be more dangerous in each map. Actually getting mirror tier gear will feel meaningful instead of just like a luxury or whatever. So, okay, great. So I kill 0.2 seconds faster or whatever. No, like it could be the difference between a build working really well and a build kind of making it work, so to speak. So that's all I got on this video. That's all in all why I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, there's a little give and take. A little bit disappointed in some of the things, particularly the line where players can touch, and I'm guessing that means they cannot further possess other monsters. I would love it if they could possess. But either way, even worst case scenario, it's very interesting Keystone. Very interested in trying it myself. I'm curious to know if you are looking forward to this Keystone in your mapping experience, or if you think I missed anything, any sort of key pieces of information. Please let me know. Let us know in the comments section below. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.